Welcome to Hoda's Career Info. We're joined today by the CEO and co-founder of Become Education, Liv Pennie. I'm very excited because we will be talking about career literacy and what careers education looks like in practice. Stay tuned and together let's explore the meaning and value of career education programs. I am your host, Hoda Kilani, career and academic coach. Hoda's Career Info is about sharing words, works, and stories from inspiring career people from across the globe. Use this program wisely and activate your career journey. Let's go.
Across the world, in every school system, we've massively underdone careers education for too long. Careers education, the process of it's learning about the process, not coming to a single answer. Early, often, and integrated. That's how we do effective careers education. Thinking about your future, like what am I going to do in this big wide world, should be the most motivating thing a young person can think about. But we've never really made it that way.
Thank you for joining Hoda's Career Info, your program where guests from across the globe share career tips and stories to help you successfully activate your career. Watch, listen, and learn. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and follow me, Hoda Kilani, on social media for more career info. Our guest today is Liv Pennie. Liv is the CEO and co-founder of Become Education, which she started in 2017 to reimagine careers education. She holds an MA in psychology and a postgrad degree in career development. She also spent 15 years in advertising, digital product, and experience design. She brings these two worlds of academia and innovation to close the gap between evidence and practice in contemporary careers education. Her work transforming careers education in schools has been recognized by the OECD as an example of global best practice. Thank you for joining Liv Pennie and myself as we dive deep into the value of careers education. I'm very excited to have Liv Pennie join me today in Hoda's Career Info. Thank you so much, Liv, for your time and for agreeing to be a part of this conversation.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me, Hoda.
Liv, I always start the podcast and the program, as you know, with a quest about your story. Do you mind sharing with the audience your story and perhaps, if possible, embed a lesson that you learned by living this story?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you can probably tell by the accent. I love the global audience here that although I'm here in Sydney, Australia, doing this podcast recording, I grew up in the UK and specifically in Northamptonshire, which is bang in the middle of the UK. And right back when I was in primary school, as we went through primary school, and lots of my friends who were really smart and articulate and had everything in front of them, started to disengage. Now, Northampton as a place has a real variety of socioeconomic backgrounds, as did my school. So we had people from really higher socioeconomic backgrounds, but also a massive overspill from London, where they'd built these sprawling council estates, which would be housing commission here, but lots of unemployment, lots of fifth, sixth generation unemployment, all in one area. So it struck me as we went through those upper primary and middle years, and it became kind of really clear that people were acting as per their postcode expected. You know, their disengagement from school, their behaviors outside of school. And it kind of fascinated me that, you know, at the time I was so frustrated that people that I'd been really close to that had all this potential that I thought were going to be with me till the end of high school, were dropping out and choosing, you know, to deal drugs or different things. It really fascinated me and it frustrated me that there was so much lost potential that it was almost like I could see that these young people were having their stories written for them based on who they are and where they lived, rather than having the chance to actually step back and go, oh, hold on, what if this happened? So I was really fascinated by it, and that in the end led me to psychology, and I went up to St Andrews in Scotland to study. It was very much this concept, trying to unpick this concept of postcode as destiny. What is going on with this cycle of multi-generational unemployment, how it links to rates of offending, mental health, and that really drove me to study. And I ended up focusing on this role of aspiration as a real circuit breaker in that. That's kind of how I fell into the role of career development, and this field. And it's since then, it's flourished since then. Still not fixed, but
That's very cool, but you're trying to fix it and you continue your work through that. But if I were to take you back to this story, what message would you share with the audience? What lesson did you learn?
well, I think it's the timing. It's you know, it's natural. It's absolutely human nature to look at a future. We have this capacity to imagine a future and move towards it. It's what sets us apart from all other species. What drives innovation and allows us to have these unique lives. And for me, I was really recognized that everyone has this their unique set, its complex, unique set of strengths, of skills, of interests. And if we don't give people the chance to design their way forward based on that, then we've got a massive issue. So it's really about this process of designing and being ambitious about aspiration and giving a bit of time and space, the importance of giving some time and space for people to be able to design their future rather than just being passive about going through the emotions and ending up wherever the system spits you out.
That's a very inspirational message. It leads us to the question about a term that you use at work and perhaps that inspires your work or keeps you aspiring.
Mhm.
And how would you define it from your perspective?
I guess the term has to be about careers. It has to be careers education. And it's not a term I uniquely use, obviously. And it's not a term that inspires me. It's a term that gives me great pain and barriers every day because it's so misunderstood. I think, particularly careers education in the school context. I think for most adults, when we talk that are non-career development adults, you know, in our world, we all get it. But for most adults, when we talk about their careers experience at school, it's often a really negative reflection. It's not seen as very valuable, and it's often wraps up everything in one bucket of careers. So, you know, they might recall a quick interview or a test they were given or a work experience or a work fair, all of these things. And it's often kind of one thing that they remember. And that's still the case often in schools. You know, what's your careers program? There's often one or two things that happen, often really late in high school. And there has to be, if we're going to do careers education, there has to be more to it than that. It has to be more effective to actually be able to have any impact on this cycle and give people this chance and opportunity to design and explore and navigate their own future. So for me, careers education, when we talk about the umbrella term careers, there's all sorts in that. There's, you know, the information piece, absolutely vital. We need information. We know there's loads of it at their fingertips, but we have to drive them to engage with that information. There's advice, super valuable. Often, you know, the counseling side, the one-to-one with a professional, absolutely brilliant. There's all the experience pieces, again, absolutely great. But there's one piece that's really underdone, and that's the education piece. And for me and for us and our work at Become, careers education is about a skill. It's not about a plan. So we have to go, what does, out of our whole career program, what is success for us? Because in a school context, if success is we just need to tick a box, we need everyone to have a plan for the next step after school and we're done, then fine. A test, information, a quick interview, get to an answer as fast as possible, that works. But for us, that we care more about whether that answer that they're on the next step is the right step for them, whether this is their own idea, whether they have the skills to adjust or navigate as they change and the world around them change. It's about self-efficacy and agency over their life and learning rather than a single decision at a single point in time. And I think we've across the world in every school system, we've massively underdone careers education for too long. It's almost from an education perspective, it has been like getting through the curriculum and getting the best grades possible is the end goal. And whatever you do with that afterwards, whether it's all fits into your life and your aspirations is kind of an add-on. It kind of chance if you've got a lot of human capital behind you and lots of social capital, it'll probably work out. But for those who don't, it's a bit hit and miss. It is a bit passive. I get spat out of this system into wherever. So for us, careers education, the process of it's learning about the process, not coming to a single answer. That process of explore, design, and navigate so that you have that chance to master the process before those high stakes decisions are due. And for us, that our whole mission is how do we do this well?
I love what you're saying, Liv. This is my utopia, is that all schools will be doing what you're talking about. You have taken action and you are the CEO and co-founder of Become. Can you tell us a little bit about it? How did you start it? What motivated you to get going, saying, I have to get this going?
As actually, it wasn't the plan, as many things aren't. And coincidentally, I was studying under Dr. Jim Bright, and co-author of the Chaos Theory of Careers at the time. And I was really digging back into the evidence of, taking from a psychology point of view and going, where can this challenge be solved? Where can this issue be solved? So I dug into the career development world and I was studying with Jim, and obviously the chaos theory really struck home on so many, it makes sense in so many ways, having lived a bit of real life. But when we went back into the evidence, I was hoping that, after a few years, something had changed or someone had fixed this problem, but it really hadn't. And I was like, these primary school kids, we can see how narrow their aspirations are, and they're only getting narrower. And all of these external influences, their parents, where they live, what they see in the world around them, all of those things are having so much more influence on their aspirations than themselves. They're still not having the chance to change their path. As we were going through the course, I was having great debates and arguments with Jim, as most people do. It's very lively sessions and provocative challenges. And he kind of, put that challenge forward. How could this be done better? If tests are still the norm in school at the end of high school, fix it. And we spent 2 years, and I was surrounded by people who were working in the school context saying, yes, we get the evidence. It's very clear what needs to happen, that the gender stereotypes, that all these influences are really constraining people's ability to make their own decisions, to choose a path that fits them. But nothing had been done about it. And all of these people that were in schools were kind of downtrodden, and I'd come out of a world of innovation in the meantime, and kind of product design, and anything's possible, and how do we get creative, and how do we use digital technology to solve problems. And I had all these people around me that were like, we know this is the answer. We know we have to do this earlier. We have to get in there, and we have to make careers education happen in a meaningful way for if we have any chance of re-engaging young people with their learning and addressing our massive equity issues. But they didn't have the time. The curriculum time wasn't there. They didn't have the resources. Their colleagues that were non-career specialist teachers didn't understand the importance. The school leadership didn't get it. It was just another thing, and nobody understood the power of this work. So it suddenly became a really obvious thing we needed to fix at scale. And we didn't know what that would look like at the time, but I spent kind of a year kind of mapping out what it is and talking to so many stakeholders about what would it be, and if you saw the evidence, and showing principals the evidence for what this work can do. When we transform and have a light bulb moment with a kid who goes, now I've seen the world beyond the little field of vision that I'd see around me. I've come up with an idea that actually really excites me. I can see a place in the world for me that's me shaped. It doesn't fit that box of academic criteria and but it's me. And then having the chance and skills to move towards that and knowing that they can do something about it and the confidence that gives them, showing principals what happens there, really said, if we can get this message out and make it easy enough for schools to implement, this is at the center of most of the educational challenges we've got. A child who is excited about their future is more engaged today. And that's kind of as simple as it is. But so that's why we started Become. And we didn't know at the time what it looked like. I found a great technical co-founder who could take my crazy ideas of like, we just need to let every student in the whole world, no matter whether they're in remote Northern Territory or wherever they are, see the whole world of opportunities. How do we do that? And so I think what we've built is awesome, scalable, and really does careers education in our way that we'd love to do it. The challenge is how do we scale it and how do we make it easy as possible for schools to implement it?
And I love what you're doing at Become, you know that. But before we dig deeper into the method that you use, I did pull out a quote from the website, Become website, that I love and I agree with. But for the sake of the audience, I would like you to detail a little bit more why this quote is important. A scramble for decisions at the end of high school is too little and too late to prepare students for fulfilled lives and careers. Can we explain it to the audience, maybe a little bit more clarity to it?
So as we know, yeah, that late in high school, the traditional model with little resources, the decision for what you do with all this learning is often left till the end. And it's often the responsibility of one person or a few people that are brought in. But it's kind of that add-on. What do I do after? It's the afterthought, rather than being the lens through which they see all of their learning. And recognizing that their aspirations are emerging over time and there's critical decisions being made in their own time throughout their school years about how hard they work, what they focus on, what subjects they choose, do they do their homework, who do they sit next to in class, all of those little decisions. As one young kid said to me, we were working with a primary school group, and he said, so why are we doing this? I'm only like in year six. And I said, well, we talked about, all the evidence and what happens, and there's lots of decisions along the way. And actually, if you explore more early, you'll get more ideas, blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of shut me down and went, right, well, so what you're saying is that schools like this reality game show, and we get to the end, and some people have loads of choices, and they're the winners and they've got tons of options and they're really excited about them. And some people get to the end and they've got no options and they're the losers. But normally schools don't let us know the rules until we get to the end. And I was like, that's such a great articulation
That's
of everything
brilliant,
we do.
brilliant.
So I wish I'd recorded it and I'd just let him answer your question. But essentially that's what it is. But what the program actually looks like. So we talk about early, often, and integrated. That's how we do effective careers education, rather than expecting inspiration to hit in this term, or even at the worst case, in this 15-minute interview. What we want to do is allow schools to take a whole school approach to careers education. Based on the evidence, we start in upper primary. So year 5, 6 in Australia. And really, we fill in the gap between there and year 10, where the traditional resources and programs kick in. So it's really that gap. And that's also the gap where we see the really big drop off in engagement. We have the well-being issues. And these are all really closely related. And we know that aspiration and agency is really an important part of that. So the way the program works is a mixture of an explicit program. We know that it's amazing and great teachers will always embed real world learning and real world connections into the curriculum. Completely support that, and there's tools to support it. But there's also an explicit part. We also need to carve out some space and time for explicit careers education, intentional thinking about their future, so that they have the chance not to be subject out and subject centered, but to be them centered. What about me and who I'm going to become? And growing that awareness about the whole world and about themselves, putting those two together to come up with aspirations that excite them right now. And instead of just keeping those going like, okay, I've got an idea, I'll put it in my pocket. When everyone asks me, what am I going to do? We don't want them to just put that in their pocket and go, okay, everyone can stop pressuring me. Like, what's your plan? What are you going to be? We want them to take that idea, that kernel of an idea, and do something to test it out. It's an active exploration. So mini micro experiments that help them to de-risk their ideas way before that high stakes decision is due. What we know from the data about the end results, when we leave it till the very end, there's a great research project here in Australia a couple of years ago by Monash University. When we leave it till the end, and we say to school leavers, how have you made this decision? 55% had said they're choosing careers to please someone else. We know that the dropout rates from tertiary education are around 50%. Apprenticeships, tertiary, the unis aren't so forthcoming with their dropout rates, but certainly from vocational education and training, we think with 25 to 50% are not completing their first idea. Now, we could say, it wasn't right for them, there's no harm, and there's certainly no harm in changing your mind. But what would that be if we could say at the beginning, this was their own idea, that they'd explored? They'd explored and developed for themselves from the inside out and de-risked and then low stakes, not invested in a course and invested 2 years and then had to come back and go, yeah, that wasn't me, because that makes them feel like a failure. They're not a failure. They just didn't have the chance to explore and design and test out their ideas to master this process while they were at school. And that's what careers education should be. So, from our point of view, it is early, often, and integrated. And that means that students get the time to do multiple experiments or de risk their ideas, learning more about themselves. And we see so many great experiments with people who are so committed to this is my idea, and then when they get a chance to do this little test, it's like a project, it's like an inquiry based project. They do something to test their idea out and they go, oh, that was not at all what I thought. I don't want to be a vet because you'd have to put so many dogs down all day. I thought I wanted to be a vet because I love dogs, or the flip side, I really do want to do this. It's better than I even thought, but I need these grades. So we know, now I can work on them from year 7. I've got that instrumental motivation to engage harder rather than get to the end. And lots of careers advisors tell us that the hardest conversations they have at that career decision point or subject selection is, I've got no idea at all. So students who are just passive and apathetic in the process, or the students who go, yes, I'm going to do engineering, and the careers were like, or like, if only we'd had this conversation in year 7, you probably could have got there, but now you're going to have to take a really long way round. So when we talk about, a scramble for decisions, we want to avoid that. We want to make sure they have the chance to make their own decisions and the agency to make their own decisions. And it's a process. It's not an endpoint. A successful careers education program for us is not that someone has a plan. They could still have no plan. I think Michael Healy on here loves that Cromboltz thing about the wisdom of indecision. Someone who has mastered the process of careers education and navigating their life and has lots of self-efficacy over their career, even at the end of school, could be fairly undecided. That would still be a success, even though, there are critical points. But success can't be a shallow. It can't be I've got a plan. It's someone else's plan. I'm not invested in that plan, because we know that's going to lead to unhappiness, to dropouts, and no skills to unstick themselves when things don't go right.
Perfect answer, Liv. Thank you so much for elaborating on this and really highlighting the value of careers education. Do you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about Become Education, like the method that you use, or perhaps an example so people learn more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So it'll be no surprise. It's very based on the tenets of chaos theory. For us, we're about preparing young people for a life of constant change, uncertainty, and how do you stay open to opportunities? And Dr. Jim Bright is actually our Director of Evidence and Impact. So he keeps us on track and makes sure that everything we're doing is measurable and impactful. And that's really important for us as well in terms of building the credibility in this space and helping build the argument and lobby for policy makers to create more space for this work on the curriculum. But from a practical point of view, we could have all the theory in the world, unless it works on the ground, it's just pie in the sky, and schools can turn around and say, yeah, too hard, you don't get the context. We've worked really, really hard to develop a program. Yeah, our two design principles in building the program, just to work back to this, are one, careers need, when we do careers education, we need to upend everyone's perception of what that is. And that means parents, teachers, and students. Now, that means making careers as exciting and inspiring as it should be. It's thinking about your future, like, what am I going to do in this big wide world, should be the most motivating thing a young person can think about. But we've never really made it that way. It's always been kind of more stressful and anxiety. And some research recently done by a year 13 here said that thinking about their future was actually one of the highest sources of anxiety for young people. If we do it earlier, it's not. Everything about this experience, about learning about themselves, it's all about them and their life. It should be inspiring and motivating. So that's design principle one, make it as inspiring as it should be. The second one is actually when the rubber hits the road. We know schools are busy places, crowded curriculums. Teachers haven't had careers education training in, for most places, in their pre-service training. So how do we make it as easy as possible for schools to take a whole school approach? And that means we have to design the resources that teachers will love, not feel like this isn't my job, that we need a tool that will excite students. So when schools are or systems roll out, become program, they can choose, maybe three cohorts. Maybe, we don't think every year. So maybe year six, year eight, and year 10s in our system are going to do this program. And it's differentiated each year for the grade, and to age specific and age relevant as curriculum aligned. And what happens is they have to carve out 10 to 20 lessons, often from the well-being time. And students use the amazing web app that opens up the whole world of work and explodes and makes them go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And they see the 50,000 plus jobs that exist in the world to really blow their minds with, it's based on that whole, you can't be what you can't see. Well, there's a lot they can't see. We want them to be just absolutely mind blown with how much is out there and stimulated to explore and get excited about it. There's lessons, it's all teacher led, but non-career specialist teachers. So we're designed to make these lessons really engaging, fun, and again, upend everything people thought about careers lessons. We don't touch resume writing, all of the things that people will think. This is about their thinking. How do we get them to explore really widely, think really deeply, and get curious about it? We want them to ask lots of questions, not give them all the answers. They'll find the information later. This is about opening up, not narrowing down. So the lessons cover this phase of awareness, which is blowing open themselves and the world of work, coming up with aspirations and creatively, not just picking a job, but what would that look like for me? How would I change? If I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, where do they work? What happens if you change the problem they solve? Oh, so what are all the problems helicopter pilots solve? Air sea rescue and bushfires and herding cattle if you're in New Zealand, and flying Uber Air in New York, and flying billionaires to their super yachts, or military in the Ukraine. Like, all of the different uses of helicopters are phenomenal. And then what happens if I change the place I work or who I worked for? All of these things. And that applies to every job. How do I really create this that's right for me? What would it look like for me in my life? What flavor of that job would be right? So they get a really salient vision about what it could be, and that's where we know the big well-being hit comes in, when they design a future that go like, oh, now that could be awesome. And then instead of, as I said, instead of just going, yep, I've got the answer, that's it, they do something to test it out. So we had a girl recently who was really, the teachers phoned and they were very emotional about it, because this girl hardly spoke at school. She had severe dyslexic issues and lots of challenges. And through the program, she'd kind of recognized that her happy place was animating and drawing. And she was really interested in this. And her teacher was surprised. Her teacher didn't know this about her. So there was a real relationship and this source of motivation and passion that was in her could come out. There was a place for it. through this structured program. And then she looked at the different types of animation and she saw, oh, actually, this would be great. So when she got to that next stage of doing something to test it out, she decided that she was going to write, how would you actually get into animation? How would you get a job for Walt Disney? So a massive killer question. And to do it, she was scaffolded again through the resources to go and take the future into her own hands. Like, how do you make this happen? Well, how would you find someone who can help? Not, does my mum or dad know anyone that can do this? That specific job that I'm interested in, how would I find out about that? And she went to the Guild of Animators. This is a year 7 student, so 12, 13.
Oh,
Found on the Guild of Animators website, she found this person and the structured to actually how to approach them, to ask for help, how to ask appropriate questions that, that aren't Googleable. And the email was so beautifully crafted from a literacy point of view for someone with that so many challenges, and the persuasive writing, nobody in my class thinks I'll get an answer. It was fantastic. And she got the longest email back. When I printed it out, it was 2 pages. It was like, great to hear from you. I also had learning difficulties at school. He's now the main animator for Mickey Mouse at the moment. And he wrote 2 pages of how to start, how to work out the types of character drawing you want to do. And then on the back, if you have any pocket money, here's some resources to get you started that I think really changed the game. What pencils, and he'd put the Amazon links in, like the effort he'd gone to. And so she was over the moon, like blown away. She got a response from Walt Disney and she appropriately said thank you and followed up. And he replied again with a personalized sketch of Mickey Mouse with like "Good on you, Charlie" in the middle, and said, I hope to work with you someday. It was just transformative. And there's so many stories like that, often from the most disengaged. It works for everybody. Everybody needs the chance to do this, but the most impact and obviously the most emotional stories are for those ones that people that we know, if we'd left it till the end, what would have happened? Where would they have ended up? Whereas actually, if we put their own aspirations in the heart of things and give them the agency to actually know that it's already started, they can do something about it and they can shape their own place in the world. It's so powerful. So that's how the kind of program is structured, teacher led, and all the resources are done and designed to be awesome lessons that the teachers will love, because we want to change their hearts and minds as well about what careers education is. But I guess the other really important thing is the impact. So everything we do is measured pre and post program, embedded within the app that they're challenging. But we ask some really quick questions that are aligned to the OECD career readiness indicators, so that we can see how much have we changed their awareness? How narrow was this cohort to start with, and what patterns? How have we changed their well-being, their optimism? What else do we need to work on for this cohort? And schools can use that data to be really proactive and preventive at a student level, at a cohort level, at a school level, or systems at a regional level. Like, wow, we've got everyone still heading to mining. Everyone's still thinking that's the shortcut to being rich in this one region. It's not going to be there. Like, we have to get in, and it's no good putting something in and waiting for destination data 10 years down the line. We need to be looking at those year 7s and 8s and getting them excited about other things. And so it's really important economically as well, that we think, that real-time picture of aspirations and getting in there early is, it's an absolute no-brainer to us. And we love when schools and principals and increasingly, heads of systems are going, wow, this is core to our education strategy. That was a very long answer for
it's a very exciting answer. I really loved every step of it, but I loved the final step, which is the test part, where they actually get to build on that and get to explore it in school rather than wait till you leave school and then, like you said, take a course or even enroll in a program that may not be a good fit.
Yeah. And the variance in experiments is really big as well. So that example I shared was contacting an expert. But other people's biggest burning question might be something about whether it would be a good fit for them. Like, would I enjoy being an entrepreneur? And then, like, how do you test that? So the designs have to be really creative and they have to be really resourceful. Would I be a good surgeon? Well, how are you going to test that? Because doing a surgery is not going to happen. So that process of working out how to de-risk their own ideas in creative ways is really powerful. But it also means that often in schools and how we've always done career, and even the OECD career readiness indicators are based on what's been done before. So what works in schools is based on what's been done, and often what's been done hasn't been very imaginative. We've got work experience fairs and we've got work experience, and we have people come into school to talk about their job. Like, what's the chance of that being relevant to everyone? And it's all still very passive, whereas this flips it on its head. And in the absolute culmination of that flipping and upending everything people expect, there's a showcase event for each different age of Become, and one of the most popular is what we call a flipped career expo, where it's the not at all the traditional one, but parent engagement, parents in the community and the school all still come, but it's the students showcasing their experiments and what they've found and sharing it with younger students and sharing it with older students often, and their parents coming to see, wow, actually, you've learned the skills to work out your own way forward. It's that agency and action. So I think having those showcase events as well that really go, we do careers differently here at this school, and our students, we talk a lot. Most education strategies and school mission statements have lifelong learners and the skills to go and change the world or whatever that is. I'm like, oh, is it authentic? How do we really do authentic agency if we're not doing this?
I love what you said and very excited about what you do. I've got one more question for you, Liv, and it's about young people. One of the things, because I get them and they haven't been through your program, is they're too afraid to experiment, step out of their comfort zone, go out and explore, take new challenges. So, to give them an example of what stepping out of your comfort zone looks like, do you mind sharing an experience for you that's upcoming or that you just passed through where you step out of your comfort zone and take on new challenges?
Yeah, there's two actually upcoming. So one of them is, throughout the last, 5 years of working with schools and systems, well, they're both related to the same challenge. Um, we found that the biggest barrier, even if we've got careers leaders in schools who totally get it, and even principals and school leadership who go, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to take a whole school approach to careers. Here's where it fits. It fits seamlessly in this well-being time we've got. Even then, when we get the teachers on the ground, any program is only as good if it's teacher led. It's only as good as the energy that a teacher brings to it. A tired teacher can make any program not sing. So the biggest challenge to scale, I think, is the understanding and inspiring every teacher about their role in it, not just explicit for teaching Become, but also how to embed it in their practice day to day, how to easily connect subjects to the real world, how to have really productive those incidental conversations. Teachers are a huge influence on students' aspirations, and often they're not taught how that influence is landing. So we are actually just launching to overcome this. We're just launching a short course for all educators available globally, which is 2 hours on demand, which is a really simple and practical way of going, okay, here's how you're influencing, where you're influencing, and here's some awesome ideas to embed into your practice right now for easy ways to link your learning and have more inspired learners in the classroom. Basically, every teacher wants more inspired learners. How can you use aspiration to drive that? So that's the first one. It's called The Heart of the Future. It's all teachers, the powerful role of all teachers in student aspirations. So that can be delivered at an individual teacher can pick that up, or a school or a system. So I'm really excited about that
And
being
how
able to.
would people, sorry to interrupt you, but how
Oh
would
yeah,
people be able to access this
from our
someday?
website, or we can share the links here. So we're looking forward to having people around the world with this shared understanding and shared practices around how they can have a greater impact and leverage those aspirations for their own practice.
And you mentioned you had two challenges. I interrupted your
Yeah.
train of thought.
Well, I think you know the other one. In very exciting news, I think is this our first time we're actually announcing it publicly? I think so. I'm so excited that you approached Dr. Jim Bright and I to co-edit a really exciting book with you, with amazing authors and contributions around the world globally, based on this challenge of what is careers education in K to 12, why it matters so much, and how do you do it well. A really, really interesting bridge from theory to practice, designed for all educators, that we're really excited to. But yeah, it's a real pleasure to share that mission and challenge and project with you.
Absolutely. I'm very excited by our work together. It's been a great ride so far and looking forward to completing it sooner than later.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see on that. Yes, definitely a challenge, but we're trying to make it because it's important. We feel that we need to be talking about careers education in K to 12. We'll get more scoops as we move forward later on.
Yes,
There will be more episodes about this for sure. Thank you
absolutely.
so much, Liv and Dr. Jim, for saying yes to working with me and collaborating.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll leave those links to the Become program and to the short course for you.
Absolutely. And I'll put them in the comments section as we promote the episode as well. So these were
So,
all the questions I had prepared for you, Liv. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about I didn't ask you, or one more comment to complete the episode?
I guess we as in the career development world, we often talk to people who have that shared challenge and the shared frustration of trying to bring everyone along on the journey. And I think it's podcasts like this and that global community are really important for showing everyone that there are shared challenges. And we often think that our challenges are ours, but there's so much in common globally, and there's so much momentum we can create to raise the bar globally. I think it's, thanks for doing this podcast and having that global audience. And I'm hoping that our book reaches the same and does the same job.
Thank you so much, Liv.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe join me to empower you to succeed. Our guest today on Hoda's Career Info was CEO and co-founder of Become Education, Liv Pennie. You can connect with Liv on LinkedIn. In this episode, Liv shared, for most adults, when we talk about their careers experience at school, it's often a really negative reflection. It's not seen as very valuable, and it often wraps up everything in one bucket of careers. Do you agree with Liv? How would you describe your careers experience? For more on the chaos theory of careers, check out my conversation with Dr. Jim Bright. Remember that you can watch Hoda's Career Info on YouTube or listen to the episode on your favorite podcast app. To let me know if you are interested in an opportunity to talk about your work, you can send me a direct message on my website, rightcareerfit.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Please like, subscribe, share, and follow me on social media, and together let's increase career literacy. I am your host, Hoda. Until the next time, take the time to pause, recognize, and celebrate what you have achieved.